A man walks into a laboratory. He believes he's about to help scientists with a simple memory experiment. Then, a scientist asks him to press a button. A scream echoes through the room. He freezes. His hand starts to shake. He looks at the scientist, waiting for the experiment to stop. But instead, the scientist calmly says, "Please continue." He presses the button again. The screams keep coming. This wasn't a horror movie. It actually happened. And the most disturbing part, thousands of ordinary people made the exact same choice. Not because they were evil, but because they were human. Today, you're about to discover the psychology experiments that changed how we see ourselves forever. And by the end of this video, you may never look at your own mind the same way again. What you just saw wasn't fiction. It was inspired by one of the most controversial psychology experiments ever conducted. But it wasn't the only one. Throughout history, scientists have placed ordinary people into extraordinary situations. They wanted to answer questions that no one had dared to ask. How far would someone go if an authority told them to? Can a good person become cruel in just a few days? Can fear be created without any real danger? Some of these experiments completely changed psychology. Others were so disturbing they would never be allowed today. In this video, you'll discover the 7 psychology experiments that revealed the hidden side of the human mind. And with every experiment, ask yourself one question: would I have acted differently? It was 1961. Just a few months after the trial of Nazi officer Adolf Eichmann began, the world was asking one terrifying question: how could ordinary people commit such horrific acts? Psychologist Stanley Milgram wanted to find the answer. So he designed one of the most controversial experiments in history. Volunteers believed they were participating in a study about learning and memory. But that wasn't the real experiment. Each volunteer became the teacher. Another person, secretly an actor, became the learner. Every time the learner answered incorrectly, the teacher was instructed to deliver an electric shock. At first, the voltage was low. Then it increased. Again and again. Soon the learner began screaming in pain, then begging to stop. Then complete silence. The shocks weren't real, but the volunteers didn't know that. They believed they were hurting another human being. And yet when the scientist calmly said, "Please continue," most of them obeyed. Nearly 65% of participants continued to what they believed was the maximum electric shock, not because they enjoyed hurting others, but because someone in authority told them to continue. And that raises a disturbing question: how different are we today? Imagine waking up one morning and being told that for the next 2 weeks, you are no longer yourself. You are now a prison guard, or a prisoner. That was exactly what happened in 1971, when psychologist Philip Zimbardo launched one of the most infamous psychology experiments ever conducted. 24 healthy college students volunteered. They were randomly divided into 2 groups: guards and prisoners. The prison itself was built inside the basement of Stanford University. At first everyone treated it like a game, but the game didn't stay a game for long. Within days, the guards became increasingly aggressive. Prisoners became anxious, emotionally broken, and completely obedient. Some prisoners cried. Some suffered emotional breakdowns. The experiment was planned to last 14 days. It ended after only 6. Not because the researchers had completed their work, but because the situation had become dangerously real. One simple change in social roles transformed ordinary people into something they never imagined they could become. And it leaves us with an uncomfortable question: how much of your personality is truly yours? Fear feels natural, but what if it isn't? What if fear can be created? In 1920, psychologist John B. Watson wanted to answer exactly that question. Together with his assistant, Rosalie Rayner, he selected a healthy 9-month-old baby known only as Little Albert. At first, Albert showed no fear of a white laboratory rat. He happily reached out to touch it, but every time Albert touched the rat, Watson struck a steel bar with a hammer behind him. The sudden loud noise terrified the child. Again and again and again. Soon, Albert began crying the moment he saw the rat, even without the loud noise. But something even stranger happened. Albert also became afraid of rabbits, dogs, fur coats, and even Santa Claus masks with white beards. His fear had spread. The experiment proved that fear could be learned, but it also became one of the most criticized studies in psychology. Today, such an experiment would never be approved, because one frightening lesson remained. Sometimes we are not born with our fears. We learn them. 3 experiments, 3 different stories, but they all revealed the same disturbing truth. Human behavior is far more fragile than we like to believe. Change the authority and people obey. Change the environment, and people become someone else. Create fear and that fear can last a lifetime. Maybe we aren't controlled only by our personality. Maybe we're controlled by situations we don't even notice. That's what makes psychology so fascinating. It doesn't just explain other people, it explains us. So before you judge someone's decisions, ask yourself one simple question. If I were in their place, would I really act differently?